कीनिया और इथियोपिया में रिफ्ट वैली से लेकर इंडोनेशिया, चाइना और नॉर्थ यूरोप वगैरह में इब्तदाई बस्तियों की शवाहिद बहुत दिलचस्प मालूम होते हैं। मोहेंजोदारो और हड़प्पा और बाबुल से लेकर मिस्र और टैक्सला की हालिया पेशरफ इंसानी कोशिशों की लचक का सबूत देती है। हाज़रीन किराम, हमारे दरमियान ऐसे स्पीकर मौजूद हैं जिनका तारुफ आपको सामने लिखा मौजूद नज़र आ रहा है, जिनके बारे में जो कि यूरोप, जापान, कोरिया, चाइना, ईस्ट एंड साउथ ईस्ट एशिया का सफ़र कर चुके हैं। इनका मुख्तसर तारीफ कुछ यूँ बयान करूँगी कि साइंस के मैदान में इनकी खिदमत काबिल तारीफ है। अब मैं दावत देना चाहूँगी आप सबकी भरपूर तालियों में अपने स्पीकर डॉक्टर अहमद शिबली को कि वो आए और साइंस म्यूजियम के बारे में हमें चंद बातों से जरूर प्रेजेंट करें।
Will be in English because I really haven't given a talk in Urdu before. But thank you very much for the kind introduction. If I can move to the next slide, please. I think wherever I can, I'll maybe say a few things in Urdu as well, but generally it will be in English. Sorry, the second slide. Now, if you can go back. If you can go back, please. No, can you go further back? Further back. Just the very start. Right, okay, yeah, second slide. Right, okay. So I'm actually going to talk to, I think sorry, if you just go to that slide. Yeah, this is it, yeah. You talk brief है. I'll be talking about as in the introduction you are told some of the testing findings which go back to a few million years, how the sort of human beings developed. I think that you have a talk here from CERN as well. I've seen some sort of introduction of that about the origin of the universe 14.5 billion years ago. I'm not going that far, but I'll be going a few million years, as I've seen in the various museums of the world, how the human being developed and how they survived sort of a very difficult environment and have moved from those few million years. Then maybe about 2.5 million years ago, there was the Stone Age, and then some thousands of years ago, the Bronze Age and Iron Steel Age. And today we know what we are. We have if you like, a robot and the drones and all kind of artificial intelligence age. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Right, okay. So this is my visit to, I'm not really expert in these things, so I should say that from the start. But it's my interest wherever I go. I normally go to museums to learn about the different people, about the different ethnic groups, different races, different religions, and how all the races and the religions and science and how they are developed in different parts of the world, which I find very interesting. So this is one of the finest museums, I think, in the world, in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. If you can, that is my guide there, tourist guide, Saeed. Ethiopia is mainly, as you know, it's a Christian country, but there's a large population of Muslims as well. So if you can move to the next slide, please. Right, so I'm not sure how much you know about the Rift Valley, but there are about 8 tectonic plates in the world. And some of these tectonic plates, they're moving towards each other, and they give rise to mountains like Himalayas, for example, And some of the tectonic plates, they're moving away from each other, and they give rise to huge depression and what we call rift. So one of the great Rift Valley is, as you can see here on the right-hand side, and then slightly on the left-hand side, That Rift Valley covers most of the Eastern Africa, coming from Ethiopia to Kenya to right down to Mozambique. And actually, Africa is basically separated into two different continents, but the movement is very slow. It's only about 4 millimeters per year. And you can see here on the right-hand side, the small photograph, it's a huge depression in one particular place where the two tectonic plates move apart. So if we go next one. So this particular Rift Valley, as I said before in the previous slide, that was built in about 22 to 25 million years ago. So very, very long time. 1 million जो है वो 10 लाख साल होते हैं. So you can imagine 250 lakh साल जो है वैसे हुआ है. And the very interesting, I think, example I thought, this is nothing to do with Africa. This is in Iceland, where I have been, and you can see that actually there are two tectonic plates. They are separating. On the right hand side is the Eurasian tectonic plate. On the left hand side of that big crack is the North American tectonic plates. And that's very interesting. I have been actually there. There's a bridge in a narrow place that you can go from one side to the other side. And one morning, what happened some years ago, that when the tourists came to that bridge, the bridge had collapsed because the two sort of, basically the two tectonic plates had moved further apart, and the bridge had collapsed. So they had made a new bridge. So Iceland, after maybe some thousands of years, will be basically in two parts rather than one part. And the movement here is a bit faster, it's 1 centimeter per year. So if we can move to the next one. Please, next. Right. So what happened in Rift Valley in East Africa? Why they discovered some of the oldest millions of year old skeletons, how they survived. That in the Rift Valley, the two sort of basically tectonic plates moved apart, and they made a huge depression. The whole depression you have over some years, because of land erosion and so on, it got filled up. So the bodies buried there under the soil, they were preserved for a long time. And now they are going down there to take those bones out and lay them and so on. So if we can go to the next slide, please. And they are basically, they have exhibition on these sort of three particular skeletons. One is, they just named that skeleton that they found RT. It's 4.5 million years old, and it had the features of both modern day humans, what we call Homo sapiens, and chimpanzees. So I'll show you some sort of the pictures of their hips, you know, how they were different from the modern human hips. Then they found someone called Salim. As I said, in Ethiopia there are a lot of Muslims as well, so that's a Salim Muslim name. That's about 1 million years younger than RT, and that showed further development in the hips. And then we go to someone called Lucy. Lucy is 3.2 million years old, so it's about 100,000 years younger than Salim, 1 lakh saal younger. And it was a fully developed Homo sapiens, fully developed humans. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So you can see here RT and the bones and the hips that they found. If you can, they say it reveals how apes went from living in the trees to walking on the ground. So basically, their hips are slightly soft. I'll show you the next slide, or one of the later slides. The comparison between the three types of hips of these three skeletons. So if you can move to the next one, please. So this RT is 4.5 million years old. This is about, say, 3.5 million years old. Salim, but this is of a child, a 3-year-old child, and you know, the researchers, they spent many years in doing the research and dating and looking at various bones and so on. So the scientists from California who did the research here, they think that this child grew up very quickly like a chimpanzee, but was beginning to evolve slower growth patterns like those of modern humans. तो हमें पता है कि इंसान जो है, इंसान का बच्चा जो होता है वो कई साल लग जाते हैं before maybe 2 years before it starts walking. लेकिन when a horse gives, the lion gives birth to a child, and that starts walking within a few minutes because it's a survival mechanism. Otherwise, you know, a deer, deer child will not survive in the jungle for a very long time. So they start moving right away. So do the chimpanzees. But this one, they think that he moved sort of very, very, very quickly and very early in age. If you can see next slide, please. So this is very interesting. It's a complete museum, skeleton. Somebody called Lucy, 3.2 million years old skeleton, and she was very much like the humans, our hips and so on. She was called Lucy because the diggers, when they found that skeleton, they were playing that music called Lucy in the Sky. It's with the diamonds. This is a famous Beatles song. So they just call her Lucy. So that you can see the complete skeleton. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is very interesting now. On the left-hand side is the hips of a chimpanzee. And in the middle one, I think the hips of a chimpanzee looks quite different. So chimpanzee can't stand up. The middle one is RT, which is, as you can see, between chimpanzee, and the one on the right hand side, which is a Lucy, which is a more human. But this development has taken to millions of years. कई लाख साल लगे. ये नहीं है कि ये development जो है ना 20 साल में या 100 साल में या 1000 साल में हो गया या 10,000 या 1 lakh साल में, but millions of years. So if you can move on to the next one, please. So that is really, I'm talking millions of years. Then move to something different now. This is Ayala Museum in Philippines, in Manila. I found this very interesting as well. So I'm moving now from millions of years to a few 100,000 years, and then I'll be moving to maybe a few thousand years, like Taxila and Mohenjo daro. So Ayala Museum, this is also a very interesting museum. It's like this. So this actually shows that how in Philippines, history dates back to, Philippines is all volcanic island. So there are a lot of valleys, mountains and so on. Here the history dates back to about from 250,000 to 750,000 years, when early Filipinos, they first inhabited the islands. So they have done a lot of archaeological work, and they have found out that how these people, they developed the land, and they even started building houses and so on. So that was a Stone Age. Stone Age started about 2.5 million years ago. So this was obviously very much into the Stone Age. And there was basically what the information that they found is that there was no land ownership concept. People just, not many people, they just lived wherever they found the land. And they also started believing in some religious beliefs and afterlife as well. They didn't have an organized religion, but they started believing in afterlife. So if you can go to next, please. So you can see here, this is what they have reconstructed from various archaeological findings. This is how people were building. Basically, Philippines is a volcanic sort of islands. It's not one island, it's about more than 7,000 islands. So this is how they started building the land and started living. If you go to the next one, this is the same sort of close-up of one of the photographs. If you go to the next one. Right, so now we come to much nearer the time, maybe 4,500, 5,000 years ago. So moved from 4 million to about 250,000 or 750,000 in the Philippines, and now we are moving to 4,500, 5,000 years old, how people lived and how they developed various things. So if you slide please. So this is, you can see in Mohenjo, they started building the houses. They also had some sort of sanitation system, drainage system, and they started building they started agriculture as well, and people learned how to grow crops. So before this, humans probably they ate berries and nuts and so on, and then they learned how to grow wheat and crops and so on. This is an interesting story of the human development. But as I said before, it took millions of years, not a few thousand years. So if we can move to the next one, please. This is in Egypt. Again, similar time as Mohenjo-daro and Babylon. And you can see here, they are doing this agriculture sort of using animals. I think the sad thing that I saw was that in Egypt, when I went to see the pyramids and you see these sort of drawings there and sketches there, when you go out, you see the same thing outside. People are still plowing the fields in the same way. And that is what I found very sad that for 4,500 years, people haven't unfortunately improved in some countries. Some people have learned from adopted science and moved forward, and unfortunately some haven't. So if we can move on to the next one, please. This is a Taxila museum, and I found this very interesting. That even in those days, 400 BC, so this is not that old, 2,500 years old. So what I asked them, what was the reason for putting this small stone with big stones? And I was told that this is because there were earthquakes in the region, and small stones were put in to absorb the shock, so that buildings will not collapse. And this is nearly 2,500 years ago, during the Buddhist rule in most of the Southeast Asia, right from maybe Central Asia to Nepal and so on. And the university there was very interesting that people actually walked all the way from Nepal and Bhutan to Taxila to study and to gain knowledge. So this was quite interesting that how even at that time they had learned how to make earthquake-proof buildings. If you can move to the next slide, please. Another thing which was more fascinating, and this is water distillation. I couldn't find the proper sort of the proper photo of the water distillation system that I saw there. So I've just copied a sketch from somewhere else. But basically, this is what it was: water distillation system in Taxila, and you can just imagine that how at that time some of the civilizations were so powerful and so scientifically so conscious and aware of doing things. If we move to the next. Right, okay. So now I'll be talking about, so that was really human development. Then a part of human development was the developing of different belief systems, different religions, different creeds, and so on. So this is about this is not about that yet. This is about Vietnam, in what they call Ho Chi Minh City, what used to be Saigon. That's about the Vietnamese War Museum. I found that very interesting as well, that how the war was conducted by the most powerful, one of the weakest countries in the world. The museum is very interesting. I thought we were showing that. So humans not only just developed, but developed science, but also got into very nasty things as well. So if we can go the next slide, please. This is Ho Chi Minh Museum. Ho Chi Minh Museum. Ho Chi Minh, what was in the old days called Saigon, in the south of Vietnam. Can you move to the next slide, please? And these are the Americans of helicopters and tanks. Can you go to the next slide, please? which were captured by the Vietnamese or which were left behind by the American Air Force. The museum is absolutely terrible. I don't want to show all the gory pictures, but people burning, there were napalm bombs were thrown, there were all kind of horrible things were thrown. And I showed this in London as well. I'm a member of the Parliamentary Review Committee, and basically because everybody has to learn how horrible the wars are, what sort of damage they cause. Can we go to the next slide, please? And this is so horrible. The napalm bombs were thrown, Agent Orange was thrown, phosphorus bombs were thrown, and unfortunately, we don't really see this mentioned anywhere in the media in the West at all, and I'm quite critical of that. We talk about, rightly so, about the war in Ukraine, but not about the crimes that we have committed ourselves in the West. The children are still born limbless, and adults crawl around in Vietnam. You will see that. So can we go to the next one, please? I think this is just kind of my view that we condemn others, but we don't condemn the crimes that we commit ourselves in the West. Can we move to the next, please? Yeah, this is now something else about Seoul Museum in South Korea, and I found this quite interesting that many hundreds of years. Can you move to the next slide, please? This is the Emperor's Palace many hundreds of years ago, and even at that time they had developed a central heating system. They were running hot water under the floors, so because it was Emperor's Palace, we had developed a central heating system which was known anywhere. And the West was living in the dark ages in those days, so if anybody tells the central heating system was developed in the West, that's not true. It was actually the idea was developed and practically it was done a long time ago in some of the Asian countries. If we move to the next slide, please. This is the Indonesian National Museum in Jakarta, and that's also very interesting because they have kind of, I haven't shown all those because of time constraint, but they have shown all kind of really skeletons and human developments for a very, very long time. Indonesia, as some of you might know, used to be a Hindu country or a Buddhist country, and how it has actually moved, it has become a majority Muslim country, so how they have changed from one religion to another religion altogether. If we can move to the next slide, please. As you can see, their museum is full of Buddhist goddesses and Hindu goddesses and their statues and so on. If you can move to the next slide, please. Now coming to how various religions develop, this is one of the great Buddhist temple in North Vietnam, not far from Hanoi city. And it's also quite interesting to see that Buddhism which came to North Vietnam from China and South Vietnam from India, there are two different types of Buddhisms. So quite interesting to see how it depends, the same religion when it comes from different areas to another country, it changes its shape, and so now Vietnam has got two types of Buddhisms, in the North Vietnam and South Vietnam. If we move on to the next one, please. So this is the same sort of statue, and the beliefs are obviously so strong that they go and pray there all the time. They spend a lot of money in gold and so on to make those statues. It's one of the very beautiful pagoda. If we move to the next one, please. Yeah, it's the same one. Next one. Yeah, same thing. Next one. And in Japan as well, in some countries they have actually a number of different religions. They seem to live quite comfortably with those. So in Japan they have Shintoism and they have Buddhism. Some of the professors that I go there for lectures and talk to them, one of the professors told me, Professor Abe, he said that, I said, what religion are you? Just kind of out of inquisitiveness. And he said, I am both Buddhist and then Shinto, but my family is also Catholic. So I said, what do you practice? He said, I practice all the three religions, and we are quite comfortable with that. So if you move on to the next one. And having said that, in West Africa, I know some people. In the family, one brother could be Christian, another could be Muslims, another could be believing in the ancestral religions, and they all seem to be living together quite comfortably, and in the same house, in the same family, and they're quite happy. So this is outside Tokyo. This is the Shinto shrine. They have got what they call Heavenly Gate, and you go through there into the temple, and they believe that they have entered their own heavens. In Shinto religion, basically, they call the spirits of their ancestors. For example, in a city, Sendai, which was defended in the old days against various warlords by the soldiers. So they go and ring the bell at the Shinto temple, and these soldiers' spirits they come and they bless them. That's what they believe. So it's quite interesting to know how different people have developed different beliefs. Next one. This is the Shinto shrine. They're much more colorful than the Buddhist shrines. Next one. And this is Malaysia. And I found quite interesting contrast here between Malaysia and Pakistan. They both are Muslim countries. Malaysia is not 100% Muslim, maybe 55% Muslim. But still, there are women who are wearing hijab and burqa, everything, and they are dancing in the street, they are singing and so on as well, which you can't imagine in Pakistan. So belief systems develop different in different countries and different regions. Next one. So I've just written a small thing that you have to respect your minorities, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, color minorities, whatever, because they are like human beings like you, and they have got their children, they have got their parents, they have got their dreams, and I think it's very important for Pakistanis to learn that as well, that how to live with each other in harmony and good relationships and respect humanity. If you go on to the next one, please. So as I said before, the story began about 2.5 million years ago when researchers found the earliest evidence of humans using stone tools. Now science is quite different than actually dogmatic beliefs, because tomorrow if somebody finds something which is say 5 million years old and looks like a stone tool, then we will change that. We will not say the stone tools were developed 2.6 million years ago, we'll say they were developed 5 million years ago. So whatever information we find, that's what science is not afraid of being proved wrong. If I am wrong, I'm quite happy to accept your theory, because your theory has been basically approved or validated by other scientists, and my theory has failed. So we are quite proud, and that's what science is about. You learn, and you learn, and you learn, and you improve further. So the other thing, Northern Europe, and I talked about that. I'm not showing any slides there, because the time is short. But it's quite amazing to see how millions of people lived in the North Pole, even before the Europeans went to say North of Canada or Siberia. There were people living there for a long time, who hunted some baby seeds or fish, and that was their food, and used the seal skin to protect themselves against the cold weather. And people lived in absolutely freezing climate, so that's a human endeavor. Next one, please. Coming to more modern age, this is London Science Museum. This is just to show really what the science can do. So this is one of the robotic surf chat that they have developed, and it's quite interesting to see that this robot, this child reacts to you. If you laugh, he feels happy. If you do something, if you tickle him, he sort of does things. So whatever you do, the child reacts. It's basically artificial intelligence. They have programmed it very well. Move on to the next slide, please. This is in the Toyota head office near Nagoya City. They are the ones who developed one of the oldest robots in 2005, and that robot actually plays trumpet, very, very nice music. and it has real robotic lungs, and uses those lungs to play the trumpet. So next slide, please. Yeah, it's the same sort of robot when I listed that. This is a newscaster in robotic newscaster in Japan. Next one. And now robots are being used for, because my own work is in industrial research, robots are being used for the industrial research, and you can see that you can actually do the, before this, for very, very tall structures, you have to build huge ladders and scaffolding and so on to climb up and to do the work. Now all that danger is gone, you can build a robot and it can do the inspection, it can do even repairs and so on, welding and various other things. So robots are not just going to see, like human beings, walking like human beings, it's actual sort of industrial work as well. Okay, next one please. And you all know about the drones and other sort of robots for inspection, that black thing going on the wall to do the inspection and repairs. Okay, next one please. And now they're also developing a drone which can carry human beings, so a human being can fly on his own really from place to place. And it's just the only thing which is stopping is we haven't got a battery which is powerful enough, so a lot of battery research is going on. And once that battery research is done, a human being can fly on his own as well. So next slide please. I think this is probably the last one. That's it. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that journey has been interesting for you. And अगर कोई सवाल है तो